Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zack Cherry, and with me as always is...
Eddie of Edward is Truth.
And today we're talking about...
Valentine!
I wasn't sure if you had more to say there. Valentine.
No.
Valentine, released February 2nd, 2001, which at the time of this recording is tomorrow. It's its birthday. It's 21 years old, and it's legally allowed to drink in the U.S.
And this is officially a classic movie now. I think that's the rule, isn't it? That if it's been over 2 decades since the movie's release, it is now considered a classic. That's pretty depressing.
I mean, I think that... So this is a movie that, by and large, is considered to be not good. And I know, like, at the time of its release, it clearly was... It was, like, one of the last of its kind, like, just in terms of the Scream knockoffs. Because it was we were already into the year 2001, so it was like we were winding down. We'd already had Scream 3, so it was like things were dying out. The genre was shifting into a new direction. So this was, I mean, like, how you say like movies are ahead of their time. Like this movie was like really behind in that regard. But what I really like, because I like this movie and I didn't like it at first, but like it's grown on me, and I feel like every time I watch it, I love it just a little bit more. But it's really like picked up a cult following. Like they're like even on Instagram, because there's just a whole community of people there, and they love this movie. Like every year, February comes around, we're putting on Valentine. Like I hear more praise about this than My Bloody Valentine, and personally, I agree. Like I like this, and we're talking about the original My Bloody Valentine, which I mean, is a really good slasher in and of itself. No comments on the remake at this time, but I just like Valentine is really fun because it kind of feels like an 80s slasher. Like it has a lot of those elements of an 80s slasher, but it also feels like a 90s slasher too, just in terms of like the modernness of it.
Or even like a 90s kind of WB, like nighttime Dawson's Creek after hours kind of thing.
Well, I know, because we were there's the one scene where they're at the art show or whatever that.
Oh dear God!
And we're just, and I remember because we were talking about this before, and you're just like, this is just like Melrose Place or something, and I mean that in like a good way. But it's just like it's all these like catty blondes who all they do is like talk shit about each other and the people that they're dating, and they hold themselves in like this really high regard, without actually acknowledging that, like, you are like very toxic people. Like that's the thing. Like I don't. There's not a lot of likable characters in this movie, but I like them all. Like it's like kind of like a love to hate thing.
I mean, okay, you and I like discovered gold with this movie. At least I feel like we did, because I had never seen it before you introduced me to it. I saw it because of you.
Well, you're welcome.
And thank you. And no, seriously though, I do. I love it. I love watching it. I wonder if it would have the cult following it had. I mean, to have a cult following, you have to have some kind of like hook for people to kind of like know what your thing is. And I feel like this movie's hook, in addition to everything you've already stated, is simply the fact that it takes place on Valentine's Day, and there still aren't that many horror movies that do that. So it kind of rises to the top. I mean, I think it has surpassed My Bloody Valentine in terms of the discussion among horror fans, and even just the posts I saw last Valentine's Day on like social media and whatnot. This one seemed to be a lot more, I don't know, in everybody's
I think
minds.
like the one thing that My Bloody Valentine has over this movie, which I mean, it's and that's not to diminish the killer in this movie, because I think that like the cupid mask and all that, and like the arsenal of weaponry is very iconic for what it is, because you have this guy using the bow and arrow, the hot iron, the drill. Like there's like this is like what Scream should be, like the Scream franchise, which is just, oh, we're all just gonna stab everyone, whereas like this movie gets inventive with the weapons. And I mean, My Bloody Valentine is also very creative with its kills, but I think that Harry Warden, or the miner, is a much more iconic killer than the Cupid killer would be. And that's, more so just because probably the times that or like when it was released versus like when Valentine was released. And we don't really get a lot of scenes with the Cupid killer. Like that's something I noticed like towards the climax of the film. He's not very like present. Just like during the kills, but there's no like big chase scenes towards the end, which we'll get to more into later. But that's just something I noticed that maybe that's the reason why people don't really hold old Cupid up there very high.
Old Cupid.
I don't know. That's what I'm calling him. I mean, what are we calling him?
Live
Jeremy
on in
Melton?
infamy now.
Jeremy?
Yeah, it's too many syllables. I mean, even like, it's too much. But I like old Cupid. Yeah. I actually thought about that though. I thought like it never occurred to me before the fact that so the killer is wearing like this Cupid mask, which Cupids are essentially cherubs. What are cherubs? Essentially angels. David Boreanaz played Angel and became famous playing Angel, and here he's we're doing spoilers, right?
I'm about to spoil who the killer is. Like we're talking about
let's hope
we're not gonna like tiptoe around like the whole thing for like an hour or however
it's over
long
20 years old,
like,
folks.
You really got to see this movie because there's a killer and it's someone in the cast but we can't tell you who it is.
And I'm actually here to make a case that there's more to be found in subsequent viewings if you watch it through the lens that I think we kind of like discovered together in our discussion of it prior to this.
I'm excited to hear what lens this is because I'm not exactly sure where you're going with it. So
okay.
Let it be a surprise to me though. We'll get to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So should I do it now or shall I do it later?
Yeah. I mean, if you're ready, is it a big reveal?
No, I mean it talks about who the killers are. But before I do that, let me finish my thought about the whole angel thing, because the killer is also wearing like a black trench coat, which is synonymous with David Boreanaz's character Angel, always wearing like that black trench coat, except it's all buttoned up and like not to give away too much. But I mean, if you're really paying attention, there should be no mystery as to who the killer is in this movie. That said, what I think I got from watching it with you, it was just maybe a mere suggestion, and I watched it through this lens this time. We speculated, I don't remember if it was like how great would it be or something like that, but about Dorothy and about how she's essentially framed as the killer in the final moments of the movie. Right. And I thought, what a beautiful lens to watch it through if you watch it as though Dorothy and Jeremy have been co-conspirators with all of these killings. Dorothy's the one who kind of like got him into the group and let him know who to go after and who, like what buttons to push and like when she goes to work and when she's away from the house and all that kind of stuff. And
so like you're thinking of this as like a Scream 2 killer mentality, and this is like a who killed who sort of thing. Yeah,
and I only think she really kills one person just because there was no motive for the person who I think she kills to be killed by Jeremy Melton. Do you know who I'm thinking of?
Well, you go ahead and tell me because I do have a lot that I actually want to add to on the heels of that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I think the only kill that Dorothy committed on her own was Campbell, because there's no reason for Jeremy to do it. Even the way she's kind of like Riley over the intercom, it's just kind of like, hey, after that, they've just kind of had like this friction between them, and then also just like, hey, would you do me a favor and go down and turn the heat back on for the water or whatever the fuck she says, and I'm just like,
well, I mean,
she's baiting him.
It's almost like Jeremy or Adam, whoever we're calling him, is like Roman Bridger in Scream 3, who has like the voice changer and was like able to mimic her voice to get him down there. Okay, so here's the thing with that. This is something I've thought about before, and that's obviously what you're talking about because we've had this conversation where I actually found out, like I don't think it's much of a secret, but originally when they wrote the script, Dorothy was going to be the killer.
Right.
And that obviously changed at some point. And
right.
I don't know, like I mean, I would assume it was before they started filming it that they changed this. But there are certain things in the movie that make me question. But having said that about the kills, because I went over all of the kills, like frame for frame, because I had the same mindset as you. Like, what is the motive or the purpose for killing Campbell? Like, he's very incidental to this whole plan. Like, there are so many people that are like probably on Jeremy's radar of like who he should kill. Like all the bullies at the beginning, and that's another thing we'll get to. Like this movie I feel like really missed out on. But yeah, with Campbell, because I was looking at every murder, because you always see the blood run down the nose through the mask. Yeah. So it just based on the ending where we see that David Boreanaz has the nosebleed on her cheek, we can deduce that like that's the killer. But I was just like, I don't remember seeing a nosebleed during Campbell's murder, because it never really does a close-up of the mask. But you know, me like having the Blu-ray and then just doing like frame by frame, there is a very, because like the killer's like kind of moving the whole time, so there's no like really still shot of the mask, except for one frame. And if that frame didn't exist, I would have made a whole Who Killed Who in Valentine episode on YouTube, but I didn't, and I like wrote the shit out of that, and like I presented this whole case. But there is this one very clear frame where you can see the blood running down the mask in that scene, like for the Campbell kill. Because if that was the case, then like, you know, maybe Dorothy had also murdered the detective as well, because he was beheaded, and if that was like her axe and she used the axe, because we never see the detective get murdered, but she would have known the detective was on his way, because he called Kate while she was standing next to him, and David Boreanaz didn't know anything about that because he was in the other room getting drunk or pretending to be drunk. That's another thing we'll talk about. But then there was this whole bit where Kate actually leaves, and I want to talk more about the director, Jamie Blanks, too, because there is something to be said for this, because there's a bit when she discovers him drinking and they have that little spat, and she runs off and he follows her. Kate or Dorothy is left in the pantry room or whatever that is, and Kate leaves her purse there with her cell phone in it, and presumably the IOU note. Oh, right. That when Adam comes back and gives it to her at the party to like reclaim it. So like presumably that's all in her purse, and at that moment that would be where Dorothy would take that, because she put the IOU note next to the body, or like in the pond in the back, where Kate later finds Detective Vaughn's body, which would suggest that maybe she is like trying to frame him as the killer. I don't, and I mean, like, I think if there was a thing, it was never like a two killer thing. Like, this is just more so the mindset that like it was Dorothy the entire time, which I think would have been a very good twist. Because there's another scene, like kind of an inconsistency, and I have no idea whose house this is. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where they're like,
they're being questioned by Vaughn, and they're
like in the suburbs.
Yeah, they're hanging, and the only person it could conceivably be is Paige, and Paige is not a quilter. I mean, she's sitting literally on a sofa that has like a quilt laid over it, and she doesn't strike me as a homemaker or as, you know, like, unless she inherited like her grandma's house and just hasn't redecorated it yet.
I assumed that like Paige and Lily were roommates because they lived together in that loft, and that's because the candy came, or the chocolates came, and they were like arguing over like who is it for, because it was sent to their address.
Paige also has a real kind of freedom in everybody's home. Like,
that's true.
I mean, she always ends up in the hot tub at the end of Dorothy's parties. She has no problem going into fucking Marley Shelton. What's her name?
The bathroom.
Kate. Into Kate's bathroom, just kind of like, oh my god, what happened? I've just been waiting here for you for 8. And it's like, so I mean,
I think that was like just for the sake of a jump scare, because clearly she would have heard Kate come in and be like, hey, I'm taking a piss, like, or just to like let her know that like I'm in your apartment. But the only thing that I can assume is that it's the like parents of Katherine Heigl's character. But I don't know why they would go to that house. It was I think it was just a case of like there was a location they wanted to use and they put it there. But like we know where everyone lives, and it was none of those characters. So I was just, that always threw me off. But in that scene, and this is why I think it might have been like the family of Shelley, as the character's name, is because he's like going through a box and he's like, here's all this stuff that we got after the funeral from just like that the family received. And there's a card from Jeremy Melton. And the thing that struck me as odd about that card is that it's not like the other cards that were received. It wasn't like all like decorative and elaborate with like a threat, and it wasn't signed JM. It just said too bad, so sad, and then like Jeremy Melton, like the full name. And if you look at the print, it's not the same handwriting. And right after that, Dorothy turns to Detective Vaughn, and she's just like, it's Jeremy. It's got to be, he's the one that's doing it. Like, it was almost like she, without even like hesitating a beat, she was so quick to throw him under the bus. And what I kind of make from that is that like all of the cards that everyone's receiving, including Dorothy, who like if she was the killer, sent a card to herself just to make it seem like, you know, that's her like Billy Loomis in Scream, like faking his death. Is that card that's signed Jeremy Melton is actually from Jeremy Melton just being like an asshole, just being like, oh, that girl that like bullied me in high school like got murdered, like sucks to suck. Something. And she just saw an opportunity to be like, oh yeah, we got these cards too, like without actually knowing it, but all the other cards were sent by Dorothy. If that was the case, if they were going that route to just kind of be like misdirecting us, because the whole movie, like, we're assuming that it's one of the male characters, like there's all these red herrings, and it's the killer is Jeremy Melton, who's now changed his appearance and is older. So I think that would have been like a great misdirection if it, like, in the end it turned out to not be Jeremy Melton at all, but actually like someone within the friend group. And I mean, she has motive because she's as she quotes, like, she's the fat girl, or when she's like, why should I? And
not just because of that, but because of like her own perspective of what that means, and like how the other girls must see her, and what they kind of like seem to have like within arm's length, and what she has to like fight for. But see, that's why it makes it so much more fascinating. I'm gonna take that little nosebleed note that you gave about like the Killed with Campbell. I'm gonna file it away, but I'm just gonna like stock it with like bloopers and oversights by the filmmakers.
I mean, if you really want to get creative and make up your own headcanon, we can still assume that David Boreanaz is Jeremy Melton, who reinserted himself into Kate's life under this new identity, but it still was Dorothy who was like committing the murders, and somehow she had like a nosebleed because it was just like one of those things. It was like psychologically, like she was so connected with the person that she accused, that it was like
she didn't spend enough time in that shower to like kind of breathe in the water vapor and moisturize her nostrils, so she was very, very dry. That's why she wanted to get Campbell back in there, and as a result of him not going back in that shower with her, she's over dry, and she's like, it's because of you know, like that's why.
Can we, I'm pulling it out of my ass, can we like just for a second here, like, Campbell's definitely gay, right? That like that's why he didn't sleep with her.
I just thought of him as an opportunist. Maybe he's fluid.
Well, you can
I don't
be gay
know,
and an opportunist, but I just saw him as like, that was his thing. Like, he's a con artist, and then it came to the point where it's like, I have to sleep with her, and then he's just like he just couldn't get it up or whatever, and that's why like story, and it's like, it happens to everyone, because when he goes to the shower, because he's like, I want to make this up to you, the first thing he does before he doesn't like, he opens the shower door, like, again, like very like intrusive to just walk in there and he hands her a towel, like doesn't even look at her body or anything, like, here, cover yourself up because I don't want to look at your body while I give you this shitty little dollar store necklace.
I would say, regardless of Campbell's sexuality, I feel like the issue is truly with Dorothy, because if I do believe that she is a serial killer, I don't know what kind of, how attentive a lover she's going to be, or if she's even going to like be able to be driven by passion in a way that isn't destructive.
Well, I think that
it makes me wonder.
Like, that's where like a reveal would have, like, you know, with the killer unmasking themselves at the end of Scream would have come in handy, because that's where we always find out what the motive is and everything there. With Valentine, we're robbed of that. We don't get a killer confession, because like, really, like the final girl here at the end is none the wiser as to who the killer is. And, you know, even if it was Dorothy, she doesn't get a moment, like, you know, the killer never comes back. So I think that's, you know, maybe that's kind of like where people got a little salty over this, because I don't think that in terms of its conclusion, it really wraps up as nicely in a bow as, you know, other movies of this ilk do. But
Sure.
I think that if they had done that, if they had gone that route, even if it was both of them as killers together, which I'm sure people would have criticized for being too much like Scream if they had done that too. But even if it was, like, we would have at least had a clearer understanding of, you know, where Dorothy would have been at in that regard. Because otherwise, Dorothy just comes off of this as this like really irritating, like passive aggressive, like they're all passive aggressive, but just like the entire last act of the movie, I'm just like, I hate her so much.
But see, this is the thing. If you watch it, like, she is in cahoots with Jeremy/Adam like the whole time, and that all of this is built in her own self-loathing, and she's driven to this. It makes even some of, because I don't remember the actress's name, but whoever it is who plays Dorothy.
It's fuck.
Okay, while you think about it, I'm going to keep going.
I'll just
whoever plays Dorth.
Dorth.
I'm not going to hold her responsible, like, by, like, kind of, like, remarking on her pedigree as an actress, because maybe, I don't know what the treatment was like on set. I don't know how much time she had in advance to, like, memorize her lines and stuff, but I will say there is no on-screen chemistry between her and Campbell whatsoever, and there's something really chilling yet entertaining about imagining that he doesn't even mean anything to her aside from, like, what he represents in like the story of her life to herself. That's why when she tells him he can stay over at her house and everything like that, and he's just like, oh, that's very nice, thank you.
There's also this like really awkward, like, when he first comes in, he's just like, she opens the door, she's like, Campbell, hey, and he's like, hi.
Yes.
And then it's just like, well, do you want to come in? Like, what are we doing here?
But I just love the fact that, like, they're both, it's incredibly awkward. And he's standing there, and then he's just kind of like, well, thank you. And she goes, you're welcome. I mean, it's robotic as fuck, almost like she's going through the motions because she can't, like, really make an actual connection, an actual emotional, visceral connection aside from, like, when she's destroying someone. So it just, and there's that other point where, he gives her after he opens the shower and she's in the towel, and he offers her the cupid necklace and everything like that, and she looks at it and she goes, it's beautiful, and she puts it on, thank you. And I'm just like, she's like
the killer.
That, you know, she's that crazy character who's just kind of like, I'm a pretty princess and I found the perfect man and I'm so happy because this is what'll make me happy. This is what'll make me look good in front of my friend, you know, and it just makes it work so much better because anytime she has to feel anything, and it even helps when they leave possibly Shelley's parents' house or Shelley's, I don't know, somebody's residence, when they leave and they're standing out there and she's just kind of like, well, I got one of my favorite lines.
It was like Shelley's like just like rooming house, or, you know, she lived there with a bunch of other med students, or let's just go with that.
Right. But what was it? Oh, it's when Marley Shelton says one of my favorite lines of the entire movie. She's just like, Dorothy, or no, it's Paige. Paige says it. Yeah. Dorothy, he did attack you, right?
I can't wait to like get, because we're going to talk a lot about Denise Richards here, but
yes. She's the star. But if you watch it through this lens, Dorothy kind of becomes the star too. But I just love that even about her disclosure and all of her bullshitty reasons for not telling anyone about it and all of that makes so much more sense if they're coming from someone who is trying to play the part of an innocent girl who, you know, I was young, I didn't know any better. These aren't the lines, but, you know, who's coming from that point of view. So it just makes it more watchable to me, and it makes it just like more entertaining. So I'm never gonna watch it in a way that I don't believe Dorothy is in cahoots with Jeremy Melton ever, or not
even in cahoots, but it is her altogether. I mean, like, that would be
I like both of them together. I like thinking because I like thinking she thought they were both going to make it to the finish line, and then he betrays her at the last moment. So maybe like they had
a thing together, or he like made her think that, you know,
he made her think that. No, but he made her think that, because if it's a straight guy and a straight girl, then obviously a couple. But that he made her think that he had forgiven her for sicking those bullies on him back in the day, when he was playing the long game in his mind and decided, you know what, I'm going to get you when you least suspect it. I'm going to frame you for everything, because I got your prints on everything, and
I really like that, because I feel like that would definitely like add a lot more layers to the movie.
Totally.
just on that note, I just want to say one last thing, because I did one movie that this kind of like the story reminded me of a little bit was Terror Train, because at the beginning of that was about a kid who just like the geeky college kid who got bullied, and then they pranked him, and then things went bad, and this is just like several years later he's come back to exact his revenge. But I mean, and I won't reveal how the killer in that movie, just how they did it, but they were very it was just like a scenario that you would not suspect, where here it's just like David Boreanaz being the killer is very obvious, because it's just like he's if you are going the route that it's just it's one of these guys, he had the most screen time, he was always there or not there when the killings were or not taking place. So I think that just in terms of as a twist, it was something new of just having that ending, where, because the ending is just you're kind of confused, what, where the fuck did that come from? And then just to have that closing shot of the nosebleed, to just kind of that to signify oh, he's still a killer and he's still alive. And on that, I just wanted to move into Marley Shelton, because I remember that you said this about her, just in terms of that character, is that you didn't like her all that much as a final girl, because she didn't have what Laurie Strode or Sidney Prescott have, where they have the discovery, they're there, they're she's none the wiser, she's still sitting there at the end with the wool pulled completely over her eyes.
Final girl by default.
Yeah. Exactly.
No.
She survived because he genuinely liked her, because she was the one girl who didn't make him feel like shit in junior high.
Actually, that brings up another topic I'd like to address, something that you introduced me to I don't think it even occurred to me after the first time I watched it, because I was too busy going what the fuck? And I've grown to love it. I know I will love it more and more as the years go on. But it was just how their deaths, or not even their deaths, but how certain transactional things that happen with the killer, with each one of the girls who have rejected him, bear some kind of resemblance possibly to the way they rejected him, to give it a kind of poetic justice, the fact that Shelley, I mean, it's tenuous at best sometimes, but Shelley is asked if she will dance with him in the opening credits, which from this that's one thing I really appreciate about the movie. From the second it starts with the opening credits and that whole flashback sequence, exactly what you're watching. It's oh, okay, that's what this is. But she says
they cast some really good younger girls that
especially Denise Richards, young Paige. Oh my god!
And the yearbook photos they used were actually the grown up actors from junior high. They did a really good job just getting all that together.
You can totally tell when you get to Marley Shelton's too. But I just love that Shelley says, "In your dreams." So the way she dies, she's reclined in a body bag, and he zips her up.
She's dreaming now,
to send her to the eternal dreamland. And Paige says, "I'd rather be boiled alive." And she's got the whole hot tub electrocution sequence, which I love. And Lily just says, "Ew," and it doesn't really. It doesn't really figure in with her death, but the maggot chocolates that she gets sent makes sense with a kind of ew. But even the
fact
that...
She also falls into a dumpster, so that's...
A dumpster, yes. I was going to say, because I was looking at the arrows, and I was just kind of what's ew about the arrows? But falling into a dumpster, ew. Yeah. I mean, you're dead, so you don't really know you're there, but ew.
And then Dorothy, finally... he or she, framed him for something that...
Yeah, she says, he attacked me. So she says he attacked me. So what does he do? He attacks her.
Well, no, he puts it now. She's the one who's going to go down for
that. She's the one. Who's, I didn't even think about it like that. I just thought he had to obviously the room that fucking I always want to call her Marley Shelton, Kate. The fucking Kate encounters and sees all the broken shit, which is Dorth, and then she sees just an empty room with shattered everything. I was just kind of okay, some shit went down. Obviously. Yeah. There's a change of plan in my lens, and he decided now is the time. Bag over the head, whatever I need to do, tape over the mouth, knock you unconscious, do whatever I have to do to get you out of the way until it's time for me to position you there and push you forward.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, you can so obviously tell that the killer's or the masked cupid is being pushed onto Kate in that last shot.
Oh,
but
creepy.
no, because with Dorothy, it was just like she accused him of doing something he didn't do, or just like, like making him, like just pointing the finger at him, and then he, got in trouble for it. So like his whole thing to her is just like, well, I'm gonna now set you up to take the fall.
Totally.
It's
amazing.
funny, okay, because we've talked about this before, and I just wanted to like quickly get it in there because Dorothy, we just wanted to like, it's, and no offense to anyone named Dorothy, it's an odd name for like in the year 2000 for like a 20-something. It's just, I think it's very old fashioned, but I just thought it was funny because we're just like looking at them, we're just like, Dorothy, there's 4 of them. They're the Golden Girls. And if you look at and then, like, each one, like, Paige would be Blanche, because she's, like, the more, like, sexually liberated one.
Yes.
And I guess we decided that Lily was Sophia because she's, like, sassy and fun.
Yeah. But she's the one
like,
sitting there, like, watching her dating tapes and just going like, well, hello, whatever their names are.
Lance.
I don't even remember. But she just got that little smirk on her face.
It
it's
looked
very
like
Sophia.
Colin Hanks in that.
Oh, my God.
But I just loved it, like, the fact that she, like, turned it off because he said that he enjoyed kayaking. Like, that was her breaking point.
That's the line.
Yeah, so Lily is Sophia, and then I guess by default, but also it kind of makes sense, is that Kate would be Rose because she is the dumb one. Like, I feel like Kate is kind of stupid. So it's just like they're this is like the horror movie Golden Girls.
And if anybody
where they were really young.
Yeah, but if anyone's wondering about Shelley, she doesn't count because she was out of touch with them for a year, so she can be whichever guest star you want her to be.
Yeah, who cares? Yeah, Shelley.
She could be the houseboy in the pilot who never comes back, because she never comes back. No. I also love our little fan fiction idea that like Shelley is actually like Jade. From Bride of Chucky, who is like, things did not work out with Jesse, and did they even get married? I don't even remember. Oh yeah, they got married, so they've gotten divorced or annulled or whatever, and now she's gone back to school, and she's putting herself back out there and going out with that guy, what's his name, Jason
Marquette.
Jason, yeah. And the guy who talks about himself in the third person all the time. God. Yeah. So I enjoy watching it as though like this is like Jade survived Bride of Chucky only to die in Valentine. I still get a curious kind of...
Changed her identity, went to med school.
I
think that's more so your fan fiction. Like I don't really...
I have fun with it. I mean, you gotta create your fun where you can.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, they're the Golden Girls, and that's just how I get my kicks.
Yes.
I just wanted to talk about Jamie Blanks, the director.
Okay,
I feel like I think he only had 3 films altogether. Like there was this, Urban Legend, and I think it might have been like a short or just something that he made in his home country in Australia years before. And I think like he's extremely underrated. Like it's sad that he didn't go on and do more movies, because I think that like in terms of this like niche of just like the teen slasher from the 90s, Wes Craven is obviously like he's up here. Like nobody is going to dethrone Wes Craven. But I think just in terms of like his contemporaries, Jamie Blanks is like did a really good job directing like both of these, like this and Urban Legend, because you can see certain things. I mean, I feel like he was like maybe a little bit constrained for budget reasons, which, has nothing to do with him. But I see like a director has like a very keen eye for detail. Like there are a lot, like, because what we were talking about just with like the idea that there are these little hints and clues that it could have been Dorothy, because I think a big part of the movie, maybe it's not so much that Dorothy was a killer, but they're certainly trying to set her up as a red herring that she could be a killer. So I don't know. I just think that, I don't know what your opinion is of him, but I've listened to, not recently, but the commentaries on both this and Urban Legend. And he's just very humble about his work as well. And he goes, and he's, like one of those like artists who he just looks at them like, I wish I had done that better, or like I wish I had done it this way or something. And I just think nice. Like, no, you did, like, I think that the way he did it, like in whatever circumstance, was really good. But I can relate to that, obviously, for a editing standpoint or things like that. So I don't know. I just want to get what your opinion was on how he did.
Well, I mean, for sure, experience in any given field firsthand for you is going to give you a newfound appreciation, or maybe not newfound, but an appreciation for anyone who's working in that field. You're never going to look at things that people create the same way because you understand what it means to stare a blank page, have it be staring back at you, or to have, a crew and a cast of actors standing on a soundstage or just on set, waiting for you to tell them what to do, and you have to have something to tell them, otherwise it looks like otherwise you completely lose control. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't want it to sound like I'm totally like ragging on this movie. I think I don't
think we're ragging on it at all. I think everything that we said.
Oh, okay, good. But I mean, because there are some things that I love the movie for, and there's some things that I love the movie in spite of. But it's I had a point and I forgot what it was.
we can go on and you can circle back around to it if you want.
No. But as far as like his direction, as far as like what he put into motion, the very fact that I care enough to like revisit it, and not just revisit it, but to like apply like a lens and watch it through that lens and glean even more joy out of it. I don't think that's easy to do. And the fact that there can be a justification for two actors perhaps lacking chemistry, when I can't put that on Jamie Blanks, because just in every scene, for instance, that David Boreanaz and Marley Shelton are in together, I don't think they're the tightest written scenes, but they make them watchable, and their interactions, there are a couple I would never want to eavesdrop on, but I believe that they exist. I believe that they have this weird, this kind of corny, hey, rah, 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 back and forth about them, almost like a little vaudeville routine or something like that.
There's something with like the way that David Boreanaz says like Happy Valentine's Day, that just like it's equally like jarring, but also like a little bit like charming to me. He's like, hey, Happy Valentine's Day. And it like reminds me of like, if I'm like filming a video or something and I like have to do like a retake because I'm like, I don't like the way that I said that. And that was like either the one that I wanted to get rid of, or it was the one that I ended up with and then regretted like just using that inflection. Which is like every time he says Valentine's, it's just like, hey, it's Valentine's Day.
That's very David Boreanaz. He's just got that cute, tiny little voice. But, but even just like there are little moments that they capture that like just kind of remind me why I love watching him. Like just when she turns him around. I don't even remember what she's writing. Oh, it's the IOU. She turns him around. She's writing the IOU on his back and everything. And he's just got this moment where he's just like, what a beautiful day. And it just reminds me of like Angel standing in the sunlight, or not standing in the sunlight, standing just like on the set.
Well, no, when he has the ring of whatever the fuck it was called that allowed him to
but even when he like wanders on the set, we're talking about Angel now, folks, sorry for a second. But when he like wanders on Cordy's like commercial set where she's like in a bathing suit, and he's just kind of standing there on the beach set, just kind of, drinking in like the sunlight and everything like that, because he can't, and just things like that, like little sweet idiosyncrasies that were captured that totally work for the moment. And that again, like even when I rewatch it and know that he's the killer, he's in seventh heaven because he's playing a role too. He's finally the guy. He's the boy. I mean, granted, he's haggard, and granted he's like only 3 weeks sober and everything like that, and he's got problems, but she cares enough to work them out with him. I think he even did just drop that tequila bottle like in his passenger seat at the funeral just so she could see
like
it, just so they could have a
sort
conflict.
Of thing, like I'm playing with
totally with so like I'm gonna make you believe in me.
But this is what I wanted to ask you about, because I'm pretty sure like the entire like him being an alcoholic was an act. Because if he has this intricate plan, why would he jeopardize it by drinking? I mean, like, that could be part of like, if there was a killer reveal where we find out like, he actually does have these complexities, like he does have like issues with alcohol. But I get a sense like by the end when he's like drinking, because it's like he's just first of all murdered Ruthie, and that's when she walks in and sees him like chugging that flute of champagne.
Yes.
and he's already like he's already a bit like what's the three sheets to the wind or whatever the expression is.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know if he's just like doing this because he just killed someone and he needs to like get that fix in of just like I need to drink, or it's just like this was part of his plan because like now he's killed someone, so he needs to, I guess, separate everyone, like just make her feel insecure, so she goes running off, and you know, if he like knew her well enough that that's what she would do, because otherwise it's just like why would he, you know, he knows that Valentine's is coming up, why would he jeopardize, you know, even before the events of the movie, just having this problem where they might have potentially broken up. So I don't know if it's like an actual like flaw with his character, or it's just like it was part of his plan.
But see, this is where I think Dorothy has insight to them, to their psyches, and knows like, you know, Kate may be the one he wants to go after anyway because she's the only one who didn't flat out reject him. Wasn't her response maybe later? And when he asked her to dance in the flashback,
that was her fate in the end. She did get her maybe later.
He might kill her later, but maybe.
I just saw it as more of like the dance, but I mean, you know, for all we know, he could kill her after because we do hear the scream like that as it fades to right.
And
maybe not exactly, but it was, you know, there was.
I'm also super sad that we're never going to get a sequel, or who knows, maybe we will, but I doubt it.
I want to see. I mean, like Marley Shelton, you know, she can still do it. She's
totally
Scream 2022. You know.
Yeah, it's a little late for
that.
But it's a little late for him to go after the bullies like 20 years later, because that's what I want.
I don't actually
going
need
after
to see
the boy.
This is like a thing I've said before. Like I don't. There's some movies that are good as standalone movies. I think that, you know, maybe there was a potential for this to like be set up for sequels, but I feel like it wasn't done properly enough. But I like as a one-off, I really like it.
Mm-hmm, yeah, I mean, it's a total dream. It's just like there's such a clear path to a sequel, whether Marley Shelton is involved or not, and whether she just comes in and warns the guys and then gets killed or something like that, or if she ends up being the one.
And you know, and I'm just spitballing here. I don't think this is necessarily a good idea. I'm just putting it out there as something that possibly, if they ever did, where they would do like a She's All That reboot, where it was like He's All That, and instead of like 4 girls, it's like 4 guys. Like just swap the genders, and then you can have Marley Shelton come back as like the detective in this story or something like that, you know?
Yeah, but then Netflix.
I'm not saying that it's a good idea. I'm just saying
but it'll probably happen.
An idea.
It might happen,
and
I'll still watch. I'm curious, but what was I gonna say? But okay, this is where Dorothy's kind of like insight to the girls as a group knows that Kate is probably still very, very sheltered and still very, very idealistic, and probably doesn't know like the way, say, Paige would. Or have kind of like the low tolerance for like, you know, alcoholism and stuff like that, the way fucking Lily would. And Shelley's gone. And Shelley has, you know, very low tolerance also. We saw while she was on the blind date with that guy, like she, you know, I mean, it's not her fault, but I mean, she was no fucks left to give. Like, I'm leaving. I'm not going to take this. I think the only one who is like even most potentially kind of like the doormat of the group would be Kate. And Kate would be the one who would want to give the benefit of the doubt. And even if she saw, you know, like alcohol in the front seat of a car of a recovering alcoholic, she'd still go, I'm sorry. You know, like she would apologize to him for even suspecting that it was him. And he's doing it just to get her trust. And also Dorothy would be the one to know that, because he wouldn't know that about her. He might assume it, but he wouldn't know for sure. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. Did I answer your question?
I don't even remember. Like, what was the question? I think we were talking about Jamie Blanks last I remember. But
Jamie Blanks. So yeah, no, what I appreciate is just like the sense that yeah, he seemed to create a terrain where people could be relaxed enough to like do whatever they do. I think Denise Richards came off really well in this movie. Every frame that she's in, I'm just kind of like, yeah, nailed it. Like I love
before we get into Denise Richards, one more thing I wanted to say about David Boreanaz, because the twist of the movie was actually spoiled before the movie even came out, because I think it was like Variety or the Hollywood Reporter or something. They announced when they were just putting the summary of the movie, or just the quick synopsis. It's just like David Boreanaz plays a bullied like high school or junior high student who comes back to exact revenge on the girls who tormented them. And I know that like Jamie Blanks was furious. He was just like, how could they do this? Like, why would they fucking do that? It like it that is pretty shitty.
Because people who don't make movies
that person,
don't think about
whoever
that
wrote
shit.
that, would be canceled in 2022. For spoiling that reveal. I feel like back then, like people didn't care as much because I mean, horror like even like today is like it's. And we've talked about like prestige horror, but I feel like the genre in general is just like it is prestige because like horror has made such a huge comeback, whereas in like 2001 nobody cared about horror to the point where like a magazine or whatever would spoil a movie like this because they wouldn't actually consider that anyone would give a shit. So it sucks that exactly that happened because the movie came out when it did. But
I think it's also
sorry,
finish your thought. No, I think it's also a problem within the industry in terms of the business people versus like the actual filmmakers, the creative influences over like what's going on. Because didn't something similar happen with spoilers for A Sixth Sense, folks? But didn't
fast forward a minute.
Fast forward a minute if you don't want spoilers for Sixth Sense. But when it was released, I heard that when it was released either in Japan or I don't remember, China, Korea, somewhere in Asia, it was they changed the title because they usually do, and they changed the title to a sentence which was he was alive the whole time, or no, he was dead the whole time, and it's like that's the whole twist. You just gave away the whole twist. So people went into that movie who had no prior knowledge of it, knowing like, oh, I heard he's dead the whole time.
Yeah, that's messed up.
So I think those were choices made by like executives and studio, or not even studio heads, but distributors, people who don't give a shit. Whereas the artists, the one who actually like put the work in to like produce something and put it on screen, they're the ones who probably should have more control over how it reaches the public. Yeah.
Anyway,
it's a shame.
Let's move on to the star of the show, which is clearly Denise Richards' eyebrows.
Yeah. Yes.
And Denise Richards herself. I was talking about this with someone today because it's really funny, and I know that you saw this because I think I sent it to you. There was a like a casting tape of Denise Richards. She wanted to play a role in Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. It was the role of Beth, the brother's girlfriend. She's like kind of the activist character. And it's like this reading, and I don't think she's terrible in it. Like she's definitely, she has this very like blasé demeanor about it. Like just her, she's like, make way for the Hardin County Express. Whatever. Like it was funny. I just like she had this quality about her that like I could watch this actress. She probably wasn't right for like an activist type character, like who Beth turned out to be. But I just think it was like funny because she left the room. They're like, okay, great, and then the camera was still rolling, and they were like, worst actress I've ever seen. I don't know how this material got out there, but they're like just trash talking her. They're like, you have to like force it out of them. And I just think it's like, because I've seen a lot of criticism back in the day. I mean, like Denise Richards was really just like live for like that period of time in like the late 90s and early 2000s. Like that's when all the Wild Things and Drop Dead Gorgeous, one of my favorites, and James Bond and like the bug one, Starship Troopers.
Okay.
The Paul Verhoeven one. Yeah. So she was like in all these like bad, like really great bad movies. And, she would always be criticized because it's like she's playing the same, like she's just reading everything the same way. But it's just like, she's still nailing it. Like she's entertaining as fuck. And that quality, I just like watch her in this movie, and she like pulls focus from everyone else. Like I'm more drawn to like what's going on with her than anyone, because she's just killing it in every scene, in every line reading, in every like raised eyebrow that she does. So that's my opinion. Or
tilted neck, just like kind of like, you know, like side eye across the room. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, her stillness, I mean, that's something, and maybe that's just something she didn't have when she was auditioning for that Halloween sequel, was, you know, just kind of like understanding, like, you know, sometimes there's more power in just not doing anything, you know? I mean, sometimes there's more power in just kind of like sitting still and just kind of, you know, giving someone the look like, I get it. Are you seeing this? And, because yeah, she's utterly watchable in this movie in particular, and but I feel like they all are. But the thing is, like, I'm gonna make this the Dorothy podcast.
Okay, go back to it.
No, because
clearly we know who your favorite character is. That's cool.
Well, I mean, it's just because she's so vastly different, I feel, from the other actresses who aren't, you know, it's not like, you know, people are like up there like, you know, playing to the back row or anything like that. They're just doing what's asked of them, which is great. I love that. But then you see Dorothy, and it's just kind of like this stunted kind of like dry delivery through clenched teeth. Everything is like this, and everything is at the same level, and you just never thought I was good enough, did you? No, because I'm the fat girl. There was the fat man. You're with the smart one. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. So
it sounds like a song.
Maybe yeah, that would be. This should be a musical. It should be a musical and a mashup, a musical mashup where the Golden Girls are these characters.
Said that, Kate was the popular one, and Lily was the fun one, and Paige was the sexy one, and Shelley was the smart one, and I was the great big fat one.
Yes. And yeah, it just so I mean, again, like there's this incredible tether to reality that she doesn't quite have, that I think makes her stand out and makes it more fascinating if she isn't just another one of them. But what I really appreciate, that I think is aged even better, is Paige's perspective, because all she's doing is being honest about what she wants when she wants it. And maybe 20 years ago maybe we were conditioned. I don't know what people's responses were to her as a character within this, if they kind of looked at her the same way her friends do, because there's a lot of slut shaming that goes on in here. Like when she tells Kate that Vaughn put his hand on her thigh, and she's like, did you ask him to? And it's like, dude, and nobody ever reports it. Nobody ever says that creep, you know, over in the precinct is like abusing his power, and we need to, like, you know, Karen that desk.
And the funny thing is, like, there are no decent male characters in this movie. I mean, like, other than like who David Boreanaz pretends to be during the whole thing, but it's just like you've got the Max, the artist boyfriend of Lily. He's just like Kate comes into the art gallery, and he's just like, I fucking her. And this was actually one of my favorite lines of Denise Richards, when she's just like looks at him and she's like, that'll do, Max. And
yes.
So he's in there. He has this like stupid fucking speech, like he's like, Valentine's Day, what does it mean? And they're like talking, and he's like, you're ruining my speech. Like, shut up.
Something very serious is going on.
Yeah.
And you girls are chatting.
And Vaughn and Jason Marquette, who I've like, who also like the one who shows up at the party later, who she pours the wax on his dick.
Brian.
Yeah.
From Turbo Dating. Yeah.
Turbo Dating. Scary
Gary. Every guy in that. Yeah. And every guy in that Turbo Dating sequence too. Yeah. Oh my God. Oh God. Yeah. That didn't age well either. There's just like.
Yeah. And there's just like, I think the only like nice person was like the one guy who like was there for 2 seconds when it was like the jump scare at the beginning when he bumped into Shelley, and he's like, oh, I'm good luck tomorrow. But that's only because we didn't know him enough to know.
Oh, that guy, yeah.
But I mean, but it's not just like the men in this movie. Like the women are also like very like toxic. Like,
well,
there's to each other, because like the I feel like the friend group, like, because Kate and Paige like really enable Dorothy, and like her like just her behavior and her attitude and this whole thing, because like this Ruthie woman comes into the party, but it's just like there's like almost this sense of like protectiveness amongst the group, because like she comes in and like right off the bat they're like going into defense mode. They're like, what are you doing here? And then you just see like Dorothy like at the like not at the top of the stairs but just like above them a little, and she's just like, get her out of there. And they're like her like minions, they're just like, you need to go. So it's like this like mean girl mentality amongst the group. And I mean, like, obviously there's more to their characters than just that, but I just feel like in general, like everyone in this movie is just very shallow. That I just
there isn't more to Ruthie.
Ruthie is a really fun character, though. I wanted to see more.
She's fun to watch.
Yeah,
she's very hedonistic and very driven by greed and possessiveness, which is why she's a good foil or temporary foil, I guess, for Dorothy. But this particular screening, I had never noticed this before, but between the shifty eyes and just like the wide red lipsticked mouth and the perpetual frown, she kept reminding me of Miranda Sings from YouTube. You know who I'm talking about? The YouTuber? Okay, well, you got to look it up. But she's the one who used to start doing like singing lessons, but she would do them like, you know, this is singing, and she would sing and everything like that. People who know who I'm talking about, look at Ruthie again and tell me that's not Miranda Sings, okay? But and it's a grisly death. That was the first, for me, really grisly death where I did clench and wince, like as I was watching her first of all busting Ruthie through that glass door, and just seeing what it did to like half of her face. I don't remember which half, and then the shards that are like pointing up like stalagmites, and just watching her just like, I mean, you don't even see it, but you see everything leading up to it, and then
quite a bit.
Yeah,
and it wasn't. It was voluntarily too. Like I think just like more of just a preventative, because they knew that the MPAA was going to be like, no, you got to cut that out. So they're just like, okay, we'll just go ahead and get all of this out. But I mean, like, just in terms of like, because this came out right after Scream 3, and Scream 3 is relatively tame with its violence and kills. Whereas like, I think like there's a lot more suggestion in this of what happens, and you do see her body afterwards, and there's this cool effect where the blood has kind of spilled out and coagulated into a heart shape, which was quite nice. I like that. These are some really great death set pieces. Like everything, like the maze of the art gallery, like that's a really great sequence. And just
the
like,
heteronormative art gallery. Men
like,
go
men
this
to the
way
right,
and women go
to the
this
left.
way, because all men are going to date women and all women are going to date men. And also the fact that the only nudity in it is female nudity. Like we see bare breasts, but we don't see any part of the male anatomy.
I just remember seeing like a lot of like
beyond the
teeth
chest
and like
yes,
close-up shots
mouths.
of teeth.
Lots of mouths.
Maybe like an eyeball too.
I love you.
But yeah.
I love you. I love you. I love you.
Love you.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
No, but it's like still like in spite of that, like it's a great set piece. And what other ones are there? Because there's the Campbell with the axe in the back, and I probably mentioned this already, but I like how like you see the axe when he goes to like Bendo, and then it's gone afterwards. Also, like this is something I wanted to ask you. He's like, well, that should be worth a Porsche. And I'm like, do people like, why do people not call it a Porsche? Like, is it actually called a Porsche?
I think it's, I mean, among like highfalutin types, it is pronounced Porsche, or it was. I don't know how people say it now. I think it was more a thing. Like anybody who was like kind of like this hoity-toity character on any sitcom who got a Porsche would never say, my brand new Porsche. They go, my brand new Porsche.
Well, because wasn't there like a thing that, like on Friends where Joey was like, wasn't it a Porsche?
And others.
Pretending to
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And he was not the first. There were many.
Because I like, when I hear Porsche, I think of like the spelling, like Portia de Rossi. It's like Portia. So I'm just thinking that's like a line from Ellen DeGeneres. Like, that's got to be worth a Porsche.
Oh dear.
But yeah, so we had him. We had the Detective Vaughn which was like the head, which I mean, like
We had
saw it
yeah.
for a second, so it's like, I mean,
Yeah,
it looked
it didn't really
decent,
count.
like a good enough effect.
Yeah, it was fine. It would have been nice to see the actual killing,
body.
but whatever. Yeah, but we saw, and Shelley, we can't forget the first kill of the movie. Shelley hiding out in a body bag to escape nothing. Basically, to have it zipped open, and also because it's the last one, I guess he figured this is the only place she could be.
Except for
Stabbed
the last
every
one.
single one of them, except for the last one, unzipped it, and then all she could do was lay there and scream as he dragged a knife across
I
her
think
throat.
that like the opening scene. I mean, like technically not the opening scene because we do have like the stuff at the
flashback,
yeah. And I feel like this is just kind of like a problem with a lot of those post Scream movies where it feels like everything is kind of competing with Drew Barrymore's Scream. So it's like Katherine Heigl is technically the Drew Barrymore of this movie.
The Janet Leigh,
and it's never like it's unfortunate because you're always going to compare the two, and it's just like there's nothing about this scene that just feels remarkable or like different from anything else. Like that might be the weakest part of the movie, other than like some stuff in the middle. But
also, what else had she done prior to this? Like, was she a star already? Did people know the name?
She was in like Roswell, and she was in Bride of Chucky.
I didn't watch.
Well, Bride of she was in stuff. Like, she was probably in this like Disney like Family Channel like made for TV.
Oh, she did My Father the Hero, where every teen girl I knew hated her. That movie where Gerard Depardieu is her father, but he's like an absentee father, so he's off being in France and she's in America, and they decide to go to like the Bahamas together. It was a teen movie, and basically she starts lying her ass off, telling everybody while she was still a teenager, telling everyone that they're lovers and that, you know, he's not her father. And
I don't know. I guess it's just weird because it's like I never like. I mean, I guess like, you know, because she went on to do Grey's Anatomy after that. But I think that with her, like, I guess she was like a big enough name that they were like, okay, well, this will be like the Drew Barrymore thing. But even like Urban Legend, who was that? That was
Rebecca Gayheart?
No, the opening kill.
I don't remember.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that when we get to that part. But yeah. Nothing about that scene is just like, it stands out to me. Like, it's very pedestrian. The only thing that's like that I notice, and every time I see it, I just like, I can't not see it, is that the cadaver that she's working on looks like Jim Parsons.
Yeah, I remember. I thought about that when I was watching it. He looks like he could be Jim Parsons' stand-in. He's not like a pardon the pun, a dead ringer for Jim Parsons.
He looks like
he looks enough like him. I see what you mean.
A Jim Parsons cadaver to me, and that's like every time I see that. But also just like the whole fact that it's like Angel came, David Boreanaz's, whatever we're calling him here, switched his body out and then like laid there, but was still like able to, like, he's obviously like a bigger guy, and this Jim Parsons cadaver, which is just what I'm going to call him from now on, is like, you know, a little on the gaunt side. So it's just like he's sitting there and she doesn't notice that like clearly this is like not the same body, not a dead body, and he's fully naked, and then he just disappears and gets dressed, and then he's all of a sudden in his thing. That would be where the twist would come in if there was two killers, because you know that the one would be naked and then like run off while
Dorothy's the one with the taut tummy. While old Cupid's running. But no, I mean, and also like in terms of like referring to them as like, you know, Angel and Sheldon and everything, Jade, you know, whatever. I mean, because I still, when I look at Lily, I still, to this day, I don't know the actress's name who plays Lily, because to me, she'll always be Lucky Scrunchy from Legally Blonde.
It's Jessica Caulfield, and she was also in Legends 2. And Legally Blonde.
That's right, she was in 2. Yeah, I remember that.
She's not even on the cover for the movie. I'm just looking like just above me here, because we've got you can't see this right now, but there's Marley, Catherine, Dorothy, Angel, Denise. And if you're listening to this and you have no idea what I'm talking about, the episode is available in video format on YouTube as well. So
yes, he's just pointing at the logo above our heads. Yes.
We can
the infamous toilet rinse. Marley Shelton, Kate, running around the water is shut off in her apartment, and she's running around looking for like a water source and everything. And I feel like everyone in double digits, the second you like graduate from grade school into middle school or whatever, like I feel like you know there is a clean water source on the tank on the back of the toilet. Yet somehow this has escaped Kate. See, this is why it could only happen to Kate. Kate would be the only one who would do this too.
Just imagine, Rose on the Golden Girls doing that.
Yeah, totally. So Kate,
rest in peace, Betty.
We love you, Betty White.
Yeah.
But Kate is like running around her house, and she even pulls out like a bottle of water, and it's empty. And everything. Why did she put an empty bottle of water back in the fridge? Horrible. And also, I'm thinking like wouldn't there ice maybe, or even maybe like
just
water
go in the freezer
in the ice
and, like,
trays that hasn't frozen yet?
Just
just chip but I mean, get a pot, put some ice cubes in it, heat it up because the gas is working, and then just like over your head.
She had crap in her hair. That's what she's like. I got crap in my hair. I got to be at work, and she wasn't going to go over to Scary Gary's. That wasn't going to be helpful.
Yeah, right.
So.
But ironically enough, the crap was in her hair after she rinsed it. So we have to call that out because
because I mentioned this earlier, the missed opportunities in terms of the kill count, because there's so many characters in here, and like maybe we'll elaborate more on that when we get to the cherry picker, but I feel like the bullies at the beginning, like those 4 kids, that could have easily been, you could have had more, like that could have been an opening scene of just like some random guy getting killed, because we actually find out in the report that like we just see it in what Kate is reading, is that there was like a guy who mysteriously disappeared, and it was supposedly one of those bullies. But you also have Dorothy's stepmother. I forget what her name was. Kim. The and even the father, because he was kind of a
piece of shit,
a douche nozzle too.
You have to respect my wife. Yeah.
And if Dorothy was the killer, that would have been motive to get rid of them too. But they disappeared in the movie, and apparently Kim was supposed to die, like in the script. And I don't know if this was something that was filmed and they chose not to use it, but I guess that they decided that they were going to kill Gary instead. It was like they only had enough money to kill one extra person during the day, so it was like, is it going to be Kim or is it going to be Gary? So Gary ended up getting that second scene where he's killed, and Kim just disappeared and didn't show up again. I guess they went on vacation,
Yeah. I do have to say, though, there is a lull in the movie. Like, I feel like there's a space somewhere I don't remember exactly when, but I just remember I felt it, where I was just kind of like, I think it was sometime after Lily's death, Lucky Scrunchy. And I was just kind of sitting there going, it's been a while since somebody got killed. And I couldn't remember how far away I was. And I didn't check the time signature this time because I was enjoying myself. I wasn't bored, but I was just kind of like, there's a lot of talking going on. We're like 3 or 4 scenes later and people are still just touching base.
Because after Lily's death, it goes to that scene at the infamous house that we don't know who lives there.
Yeah.
So it's a scene with the detective where he's talking to them, and then the next scene is a scene with Kate and Adam, where I think it's like that night, and they're like on a date, or they're like coming back from a date. Like there's a lot of just scenes of them she was at her office, and then he came to pick her up, and then they were walking back to her apartment, and then he's like, hey, I don't think I can come up because, I'm afraid of like, what's going to happen sort of thing. And then the next scene after that, they're back with the detective, but now they're at the police precinct. And then the scene right after that is the death. It's like the Gary kill. But then right after that is when she comes to her apartment, like she gets out of the cab and he's waiting there. And that's when he's like, hey, happy Valentine's. And it's funny because he's like buzzing on the buzzer, and it's like he doesn't even see her come in the shot, but it looks like he kind of turns because he like gave up. He was tired of waiting, and then he just bumps into her, and just like without even skipping a beat, it's like, hey. So there was that scene, and then like she goes upstairs, and like Gary is nowhere to be found, but somehow Paige is in the the bathroom. And I don't know if they were trying to set it up that Paige was the killer. I think that was stupid. But it was just to like have a jump scare and to show that Paige does have a lot of freedom when she's in her friend's house. But I feel like that stretch of time could have been streamlined a little bit better, because when you have 2 scenes with the detective and then 2 scenes with David Boreanaz where we don't really find out, like, there's new information that we get, like, because they do the de-aging, or not the de-aging, but the aging up,
the aging up of Jeremy,
and then
which was off.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he got surgery, but I don't know. David Boreanaz doesn't have a surgery looking face. So.
Also, another dumb Kate line when she says, "Do you have any more recent pictures?" And he just like turns to her. He's just like, "If you did, don't you think we'd be looking at them?"
Rose Nyland would have asked that question. And there would have been a laugh track right afterward. Yeah.
And then
Dorothy would have just been like...
But Dorothy would have been the one to give the line, not Maybe Detective Vaughn is the Dorothy of Valentine.
No. Detective Vaughn does not get to be the Dorothy of the group. I did have a question about Detective Vaughn, though, because this is one thing where I feel like the ball was kind of dropped and I can kind of do the work for myself, but I wish it were a little bit more pronounced. Why is Detective Vaughn continually, or why is he continually summoning these girls, or why are they continually going to him? They never really, we always see them kind of like reconvening, but it's never explained why, really.
I think it's just, that's a problem too. And it's, I did want to comment on this because their friend was murdered. Shelley was murdered, by a serial killer, or just a killer at that point, who had not been apprehended at that point. They don't know what the motive was or anything, but their friend, who they went to school with and was part of their circle for a really long time, until like the past year or so, was murdered. And they have a they just go on with their life. Like, they're just like, oh, I'm
don't really mourn
dating.
her.
I've got dates lined up, and that's kind of the mentality. But it's still like thinks that there's some connection to them. And I feel like the reason why he's summoning them is because he wants to get closer to Denise.
Right.
That's kind of the thing, but they don't really take it seriously. I mean, as like that's typical horror movie behavior, though. You're going to have characters who don't realize they're in a horror movie until the end. But it does seem odd that they are very, I don't want to say nonchalant. There actually was a deleted scene that's on the Blu-ray that takes place after the funeral where the 4 of them are getting together and toasting to the memory of Shelley, but it all still feels very lighthearted. Like they're like, it's like she died of natural causes. Like, they're just like, wherever you are, like,
and like it happened a while ago, a few months ago.
It's not like our friend was murdered and this is like,
The funeral isn't even that sad an affair. They were kind of like, all they do is slut shame Paige when she like drops her wrap, and she's just wearing a nice, pretty black strap.
Well, it was actually
like
Lily.
Spaghetti strap gown.
It was Lily.
And
she's like, God, Paige, this is a funeral. Cover up.
It's a funeral. She's like, what?
I could just see Sophia being like, God, Blanche, this is a funeral.
Though she would have had a funnier line. Yeah, she would have had a funnier line.
Yeah.
So I mean, the focus is on like, keeping up appearances. We have to be, conservative appearing women because our friend is dead. That's my priority right now. And nobody addresses that. That like, great thing to be focusing on right now. But I think the thing that bothers me is just like, I wish it had been tweaked. And I was going to ask you, because I didn't double check, but did Jamie Blanks also write the screenplay, or was this a separate screenwriter?
So this was like I mean, first of all, this is based on a book, supposedly. Like, it's not. It's a little far removed from the source material. But there was. I know that I don't know if because on IMDb I think that there's 4 people listed, but then there was 2 other writers that came in and did the screenplay or did rewrites on it. And I reached out to them because when I was doing my research, I wanted to like get their like opinions or just find out like why did like what was the case with Dorothy, but they never got back to me, so that was unfortunate. But there was a lot of it passed through quite a few hands. The end, like the climax, wasn't supposed to take place at the mansion, and I don't know if it was like that Dorothy lived in a penthouse somewhere, because it was just like there was like this big party somewhere. So it took place at a penthouse, and there was going to be a chase scene at the end with Marley Shelton's character, where she would have gone into a dumbwaiter, so like kind of like H2O with Sarah.
That's fun.
Which I feel like it just came down to like budget reasons that they didn't have enough money to film all that stuff. But I there's something about the mansion I really like that room, like the games room with the plaid wallpaper. That's the real, I mean, other than Denise Richards, that is the real star of the movie. Every time I see that, I'm just like, oh, I want to live in that house.
Yeah, it's a beautiful set.
Yeah.
I appreciate that wall. I appreciate the fact that it kind of echoes. I feel like that's the only other time besides, when was it? When I just noticed like depth of field, lots of pink in the background. Maybe it was...
I think it's like the upper level of the mansion, because it's got like kind of like a salmon-y, like a pink, maybe like a coral paint.
Right, but I feel like it was also just like it was still the mansion, but it was the daytime when she was when we first get introduced to Campbell and first get introduced to Kim, and Dorothy's interacting with them. There's all that, all the depth of field like behind them is just like in daylight, like bright, vivid pink and everything like that. And granted, it's not exactly what I would want it to be, because it's really, really harsh lighting coming through and everybody looks tired. But it's at times, and this is not Jamie Blank's fault, but at times there are moments, and this is one of the things I love about the movie. There are moments where it does kind of like echo The Room for me, like Tommy Wiseau, like in terms of just like
I haven't seen The Room, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh my God! Okay, we have to watch that. We may not do a pod about it because it's not really a horror movie, but
I mean, it looked like a horror movie from the poster.
It is, but not intentionally. It's a horror movie for all the right reasons, and all the wrong reasons.
I think if there is like a criticism for this movie, it's kind of the misplaced humor, because there's this tonal imbalance, and we see that because at the beginning there's the turbo dating scene, like that was like this. Yeah. It was almost like a sitcom sort of like setup. Also, did you notice the shy guy at the turbo dating? He showed up at the end. He was at the party. He had no lines, but he was standing there on the staircase. And as Paige came down, he was like, like he was going to talk to her. And I'm like, why did they bring
more red herrings? More red herrings.
Yeah, there's a lot of red herrings in this movie. And you know what? I actually want to say, like, there are. They failed at, but others they did a really good job at. Even if they just kind of came in and came out and were just a red herring for a minute, I think they were effective. Like that Brian guy, when he's just like, let's go upstairs. There's something I want to show you. And the only one that I don't like that just really pissed me off was Jason coming back at the art gallery, where he just stood there and he was like grinning at them, and they're like, hey, you gonna come over? And then he just like, his face turned, like he just like dropped all emotion from his face, turned and walked away, and it's just like, what that was just so not like how a person behaves in real life. Not that Jason is like a character that behaves
exactly
or conducts themselves in a manner that people should behave in, but it was so odd, and it just felt like I remember the first time I saw that movie, I was like, this guy looks familiar, but I don't remember him enough. Was he the same character from the beginning? Like it seemed odd to me.
Oh, I totally no. I what I like about it is it feels like there is a kind of weird tonal consistency just as far as that character alone, like that isolated character. I'm just kind of like, because you're a creep and you think you're God's gift, and you think standing across the room and giving, like the devil eyes, like the evil eye to a girl and grinning like a serial killer is like what she wants. And then when she actually like, kind of like confronts you or even acknowledges you don't take the bait because, oh, she's too aggressive. Like, I need someone I can dominate. Like, I don't know. The toxic masculinity is all over this movie, and it rarely gets rewarded. It doesn't really get payback unless you consider, like, the kill from the killer. But he's not killing them with that intent. So like
the only male that gets killed is Campbell, who in my headcanon is a gay con artist. So it's just like,
Oh, and Gary.
What are we... Gary. But that's more like that, like Gary, that to me is not toxic masculinity. That is like severe psychological, like mental, like issues that he has.
It can be both. It can be both.
Yeah. So it just feels like, it does feel like the killer is like really misplacing their like where their aggression is going here, because he's just killing like the women who have humiliated him. Rather than like the men who actually, because there's even like Max, they could have killed him off, or even like the girl who Amy, his assistant, when she's just like, "Who's that?" "Oh, that's Amy." "Who's Amy?" Like, just...
But even the fact that he kills Scary Gary, like after he's got the exchange with Kate about him and how he's like kind of after her. I always wondered if he suspected Gary might actually try to kill her and beat him to it, and that's the only reason he killed him.
Who knows? Or maybe he didn't want to kill her and he was just being protective of her. Like that's kind of like where more so I looked at it from.
Oh, I never give men the benefit of the doubt in these movies, but but that's what I'm saying. It's just like, it's so wonderful to just kind of like build up like opinions. Like the material is rich enough and does a good enough job to like court my interest, to make me develop a point of view about like, why is that person with that person? What is that person doing with that? And I could honestly like talk about it for hours and hours and hours. And
we'll wind this down.
Yeah, we will.
I just a few other things I wanted to comment on. These are just notes that I made while I was watching it, and I really appreciate this because this movie is set in San Francisco, and not once did they show us the Golden Gate Bridge. And I feel like that's like, if you watch like Cinema Sins, it's like you have a movie set in San Francisco. Every time you show that bridge, it's just like, that's a sin. So it's just like, I'm glad that, they just showed that it's just like, we're not going to be like, well, we're going to put the Golden Gate Bridge here because this is San Francisco. So I like that. Points in favor for Valentine for not being basic. And then also, and I feel bad because we just did the Scream podcast for the first movie, and we didn't talk about Marco Beltrami, and we'll talk about it more when we get to the sequels. But I did want to comment on the score for this movie, because it's very subtle, but I find it's very effective as well. And I just looked up who it was, and the composer is Don Davis, who also scored the Matrix movies. I don't know if he did the newest one, but he did 1, 2, and 3. And he also did the score for one of my favorites, House on Haunted Hill, the remake. And I really I love that score in that movie. That it just was a very synth, atmospheric, it just felt like we're in a haunted house here. So I just want to make sure that I'm credit where credit is due all over this movie.
There was an actual cue that stood out to me that reminded me of cues in Silent Night, Deadly Night. And it was just like these tinkling keys that were just kind of like, and I forget exactly where it happened. I think it was relatively early in the movie. It's one of the first notes that I have here after like all the girls' names. So should have been pretty early. Maybe it was the first kill with Shelley, but I just remember the killer moving into position somewhere and just hearing this ding 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 ding. And I'm not doing it justice, but it was evocative, and I was just kind of like, oh, I'm going to make a note of this, but I didn't. I'm glad you brought up the composer's name, because I didn't write it down, because I'm just going off opinion here. So yeah, awesome. Anything else?
I think I'm good. I'm ready to
to
let the blood spill here. Okay, so let's get to the cherry picker. So last week's episode, we did Scream, and our two options were what the characters didn't have any names, as far as I know, but I chose the blood is too red guy. And Eddie, who did you choose?
I chose Video Store Girl.
But I called her Girl in the Video Store, And
girl who doesn't know who E.T.'s mom is,
or the Howling,
or what the Howling is called.
Just like a video store nuisance.
Yes.
Unfortunately, just because the channel for this YouTube is new, I don't have access to the community section yet, so I can't put a poll up on there. I mean, you can check; it might be up by the time this episode airs. But I do have the results from Instagram, because I do the poll on there as well, and on Patreon. So with 206 votes versus 44 votes, we've got a winner with the Blood is Too Red guy. And I mean, I already made my case in that episode, but do you want to comment on anything there with?
I concede. I heartfully.
I think who you should have chose was the couldn't afford a decent pair girl. You know, the girl at the party when they're like, I want to see Jamie Lee's tits, and they're like, no, like she wouldn't do that, and then the one girl's like, probably couldn't afford a decent pair, and Randy's like, what'd you say? It was like the only time I've ever seen Randy like get angry at someone. It's like, what did you say? And then he like literally like with a second, he's just like already distracted by the movie. Or you know, someone even telling
me who I should have chose.
Well, I'm just throwing out options there. Someone even mentioned the cheerleaders in the bathroom, and I said to that like, well, I like those, like they're fun, they're entertaining, you know.
Yeah,
we don't want to kill
played
people
one
that
of
we
them in a
enjoy
reading. No, not at all. If I'm entertained by them, like the people who bring nothing to the table, those are the ones I want to kill.
Yeah, totally.
And they bring something.
Yeah.
I get that 90s gimmick of like having the girl like in the stall while the girls out front are like bad talking her, and that's a vital part of that scene. I need that. Yeah. Anyway, you are pathetic. Where would I be without that girl? Anyway, go on.
Where do you get this, Ricky Lake? Okay, so with that in mind, I am the victor here, which means I get first dibs on Valentine's.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with Jason Marquette. And
wow.
Oh, well, I can't wait to hear what you have to say, but just a few reasons here. I've got pointless red herring, which I already mentioned before. Like he's just kind of comes in there to, you know, add nothing to it. Like it's a character that comes and disappears. Most of them do disappear, but at least they add something to the scene that they're in. Like he's kind of part of that movie that I was talking about. That's just like the tonal inconsistency for me, where just like, is this guy here to be like goofy and comedic, or like actually scary? Because when he tries to be scary by having that like that evil look on his face, he looks stupid. Speaks in the third person, automatic like kill for me in any movie if you're doing that. A cheap date, like he literally picked up the bill like that. Like honestly, like, you know, whatever people want to do if you're like splitting the bill, going on a date or whatever, but he grabbed the bill first. You know, he probably had this arrangement with her or anything, but he suggested that it was just like, yeah, I'm gonna pick this up, or like that was the mindset. And he looked at it, and there's even like this sound effect of like a cash register, like a ka-ching, and he's like, ooh, mucho expensive, or whatever he says. He's like, no, you had the 2 glasses of
muy expensivo,
yeah.
I think he says. Yeah.
And just like, no, like, fuck you. Like, you know, if you're gonna pay it was almost like he was going to pay for the bill, but then when he saw how much it was, he's like started to back out, where I would have just been like, okay, I'm going to put down this much for my meal. And like, you know, as a normal person would behave on a date in a restaurant if you're splitting a bill, rather than just being like, oh, you bought something way too expensive, I'm not paying for that. So it's just the implication that he would have paid for her, but then chose not to because of, you know, how much it costs. So he's a cheap date. And and then like just all that shit after, where, you know, he doesn't handle rejection well, and then immediately starts hitting on some other girl without even seeing what her face looks like, just based on her, her dress. So he's just he can die. I think there's a lot of people who can die in this movie, but I want him to, you know, receive the most painful death of anybody. So there's my cherry pick.
Before I dive into mine, I just want to comment on what you were saying, because I didn't realize, because I don't really think about it. Like it's, you know, when I've dated, if usually I'm fond of the zigzag thing, like, you cover this time, I'll cover the next time,
totally.
and if you paid like a lot, then I'll do it maybe the next 2 times or something like that. But we'll kind of keep track, but not make a big thing about it. Like, I'll just know, well, we went to a big expensive place when you paid, so I'll pay this time, and if we eat something else later, or if we're getting dessert,
it's
like,
one
I'll
of those
get
things.
that,
It's like it's an
whatever.
unspoken rule. It's just something that
Yes.
you don't have to talk about. You just know. It's just like, oh, I got it this time.
And it's an opportunity for you to like kind of bring your decency forth and just kind of let someone know I'm easy to get along with, and I'm not going to let you suffer. But I'm also, I've been in situations where like a guy wants to like, pick up the tab like all the time, and I'm just kind of like, okay, well, can I pick up at some point? And he's like, well, I don't know, and then you're just like, okay, well, just that's the temperature. But I like to meet people halfway and everything like that, but not keep books. I don't want to sit there and get the thing. And I was in Vegas with my friend, and we were driving out there. No, and she was just talking to me about the guys that she's dated, and the biggest turnoff for her with one in particular was that he'd only take her to restaurants where he had a coupon. And he would let her know, well, we'll go to this place because I got a coupon. She'd be like, don't tell me that. In fact, you should be hiding that. It should be in your billfold, and like slide it inside the little envelope that they give us for your card and everything like that. And don't tell me. Just don't tell me. Yeah, I don't want to know that you're saving, that I'm a bargain.
Jason Marquette, he might be someone who uses coupons. He probably does, but he would never let his date know that he was using a coupon. Like, that would be like a very
He was in an establishment
thing.
Yeah. But he was in an establishment that like would not take coupons. It didn't look like a coupon-y kind of place. Yeah. Anyway, so I just wanted to say like, brava. And yet at the same time, I'm shocked because I feel I'm going to vote my conscience and my heart. I'm going to say Detective Vaughn deserves to die most in this movie because he is an unprofessional creep abusing his position of authority to make advances at a college-aged girl. He thinks no means not right now. And he goes unreported, and even the price that he ultimately pays with his life and his mortality is one that happens off screen. So we don't even get to relish the fact that he has been wiped from the face of this earth. So he's my choice. That's my case.
Okay.
Open and shut.
All right. Well, so you've got the picks. Now we hand the floor over to you, and you can either go and see if I do have the community tab open. I'll put the poll up there when this episode releases. If not, you can follow me on Instagram at RetroBitchface, and that is all one word, exactly how it sounds. I'll have the link or just the handle in the descriptions down below, and I will put a feed in my story also the same day as this drops. You can also follow Eddie on his Instagram.
Edward is Truth.
Edward is Truth.
That's my handle.
Yeah.
All one word.
Yeah. And also, if you are listening to this as an audio podcast, it is available on YouTube, on the Cherry Picker in video. And if you were watching this on YouTube, it is also available in audio format. The RSS feed is in the descriptions below as well. And also, if you would like to support us and become a Patreon supporter, you will have access to these episodes, both video and audio, the Friday before they're released. And on that, I also just wanted to give a shout out to my Patreon supporters here. Which I meant to do last time, but I did not remember, so I'm going to do it now. And I hope I don't miss anyone because I'm just going off of the list of the active members, and sometimes this is the February 1st. It doesn't have everyone right away, so if I missed your name, I mean nothing by it. Please message me on Patreon and tell me, and I will shout you out in the next one. But we've got Steve Testa, Nathaniel Fincher, Anastasia, Serena Whitney, William Patrick Coleman, I Heart Slashers, Reagan, Emily, Tevin Jackson, Leslie Roman, Garrett Adkins, CM, Alejandro Bautista, Kyle Beard, Kenny, Mehmet Z, Natalia, Luke, Herbert, TP Ty, Jessica Beggs, Marcus Connerly, Eric Champney, Matthew Lackman, Maxime Rivest, Ethan J. Weber, Mika 83, John Kinsey, Jamie Kevin Wagner, 9 times, Joe Sinikevich, Don Dontrell Jackson, Hangover Books, Julia Fox, Olivia, Sarah Mitchell, Sarah Pitts, and Chris. So, yay! Thanks to all of those people who, make this possible, make it easier to produce these podcasts, produce episodes on my main YouTube channel, the Zack Cherry YouTube channel. And I also wanted to thank also Andre Felix, who is helping us with editing these podcasts. So just shout him out as well. And do you know what we're doing next week? Did you forget?
Tell me.
I know.
I know the franchise. I just don't know the exact.
We're gonna do the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, the current, the 1 through 8, because the new movie is coming out soon. So we want to bone up on that before we sink our teeth into it. So anyway,
are we doing the entire franchise in one pod?
The entire franchise.
I'm sorry. I'm just okay, in one pod. Okay.
This is a conversation that can be had off pod. Why are you embarrassing me right now?
I'm sorry. We can edit this out.
How dare you? No, leave it in. Leave it in. We're gonna speed round through the whole thing. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and we'll be right back.